Okay, so we're here today with Gemma. She's one of our one of Moxon English teachers, and we're going to talk today about teaching English on Skype. Hi, Gemma.
Hi.
Hi. Very nice to talk to you. Can you tell us why did you decide to become an online English teacher?
Yes, I really like the convenience of it for not only for the students but also for myself. I travel quite a lot, so I'm not always in the same place, and it means I can take my work with me, take my students with me, and a lot of the time they enjoy it as well. So they like to know about where I am and what I'm doing. So that was why I originally started doing it, but I also like to teach one-on-one because you can tailor the lesson to the students' needs. So I get to find out more about them, they find out more about me, and they get a lot more speaking practice that way as well.
Okay, very nice. And do you teach only private, like one-to-one lessons, or also group courses?
So online, I only do one-on-one lessons. So some of the students want things that are focused on their business, and some students, even though it might be for business, they do like to have just normal conversation, just a general conversation, which will helps them when they travel, or just for meeting new people. So yeah, usually just one-on-one.
Okay, sounds very good. And do you always use Skype when teaching online?
Yes, always Skype.
Okay, why do you use Skype?
And for me, it's the most convenient, and I'm not a technical genius, so I'm quite happy just using something that works efficiently, and usually most people know how it works. So yeah, I find it quite good.
Okay, and what do you enjoy the most when you're teaching online?
Um, getting to know the students and what they want from the lessons. So um, everyone wants something different. So it's nice to hear about why they are learning, what their experiences have been in the past, what their objectives are, and yeah, and just like I say, meeting their needs. So I like to hear their stories and where they want to go with things.
Okay, and what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of teaching online and also learning a language online?
So I think the advantages are definitely, like I said, convenience. So for a 1 hour lesson, you really only do need to take 1 hour out of your day. Um, I've taught in a lot of schools in the past, and I know even just from teaching and from students that a 1 hour lesson can take 2 or 2.5 hours out of your day just for travel time. So it's a really good advantage. And also you can choose where you have your lesson, so you can have the privacy that you need. um I think I can't think of many disadvantages. I think maybe in the way that I teach, it could be something like they don't get the classwork. So I can't, as in a normal classroom situation, you could put students into pairs and they could talk together. But I like to think that I still give them what they need in that way, because we do role play situations and we do conversations like this. So I can't think of many disadvantages. As a teacher, there's not many disadvantages for me.
Of course, of course. Well, it's not very different from learning face to face.
Exactly, exactly.
On the other side of the of the screen, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that different. And let's talk about your lessons. Can you tell us how do you normally structure your lessons? What types of activities do you include?
Sure. It it always depends on the student. So it depends on what the student is looking for. Um, I like to do role plays. I think a lot of my students really enjoy role plays, um, because I like them to feel comfortable so they can make mistakes with me. So even if it's just that natural scenario of going into a shop in a foreign country, they seem to enjoy that, and they can be whoever they want to be. So I like to do role plays, but not too often, so that you don't lose the magic of it. Um, Lots of book reviews, film reviews. So I like the students to have that opportunity to talk, because I think um, usually a lot of the struggles are speaking. So they want to be able to speak and express themselves. So things like book, film reviews. We do interview questions, typical interview questions for more business students. Some students like to do a bit of written work, so I would tend to give them that as homework. But it always just depends on what they want. So I usually spend the first lesson really finding out about that student. So we don't usually do, even if they want to do a lot of grammar in a course, I try to not do so much of that in the first lesson. I really want to find out what they're interested in, because I think if the student is studying something they're not interested in, they probably won't learn, and they probably won't um, continue to have enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you mentioned grammar. What do you think about grammar? Do you think it's very important? How do you teach it? Do you teach grammar normally?
I think it's really important to learn grammar, but I think that it can be difficult for a student to stay focused and interested in grammar. Um, and this is it can be because they found it boring when they were at school. They don't like studying rules. So again, it depends on the individual. But if they tell me that they find it boring, then I try to find different ways to teach it, so that I'm not just showing them the typical rules 1, 2, 3, 4. That I can make it a fun subject for them. So it depends on the person, but and I usually like to find out how much they already know, and you can hear this through how they are speaking. So you can hear how much they have usually studied.
Okay. And for example, when your students make grammar mistakes while
Mhm.
speaking, how do you correct them right away? Do you let them know maybe at the end of the lesson, or do you don't correct them? How do you handle it?
It depends. If it is somebody is talking and they have something quite long to tell me, I usually won't correct them during this. I will make a note of this and tell them later. Um, so sometimes I'll do corrections at the end of the lesson. Sometimes I'll do them at the end of their sentence. It really just depends on the flow. I don't really like to interrupt the students, because I feel it can put them off their flow of speech. So yeah, I prefer to maybe at the end of what they're saying, then I will go through the correction, and I might ask them if they know the reason why. So I give them the opportunity to self correct, because as a student that also feels good when you corrected yourself.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And so, do you teach mostly adults, or you have also children or young people?
Online, mostly adults, and in schools, more children. So I teach both, but online it is mostly adults, yes.
And do you give them homework? Do they like to do normally homework? Dance
um,
homework?
Everyone tells me that they like to do homework, but in reality, it's not always the case. So I will set homework, but you you find out after a few lessons the students that really like to do it and the students who don't. So um, it can be difficult to enforce this. Some students will say to me at the start of the course, please give me homework, please make me do it, because I know I won't. So yeah, I do like to give homework. Not all students want it though as well. Some people tell me they're too busy, so
Yeah.
that's okay.
But do you think it's important to do homework?
I do, because I don't think it's always enough to just speak, for example, for 1 hour a week. I think it's good if you want to keep up practice, but I think if you really want to study and you want to learn faster, um, you have to spend more time with the language, even if it's watching TV or watching a film or listening to radio. So it doesn't have to be always written homework. It could be a listening exercise, for example. But I think if students have the time, I think it's really important to spend it. I'm a language learner myself, and I know that if I just spend 1 hour a week studying, I'm going to learn slower than if I spend 5 hours doing something. So you have to, make the time to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And how many hours do you think someone should dedicate to learning English a week?
It depends on their schedule. I would say 3 or 4 hours. So potentially 2 or 3 hours conversation if they have the time. Um, and maybe another hour or 2 hours just reading at night, or listening to radio in the target language. Ideally, more hours than this, but if you are working full time or you have a family, maybe you don't have the time.
Yeah, of course. Well, you can always find some extra time to do a little bit of
If you're committed, yes.
even if you're listening on the way to work or in your lunch break. But if you're committed, you can always find some time.
Exactly.
Yes. What do you think are the biggest difficulties for English learners? What are your students' biggest challenges?
So, well, I would say my students' biggest challenges are maybe comprehension, actually. Um, Most of my students are Italian, and they they have films dubbed in their language. So if I make the comparison to other countries, Portugal, for example, um, they they have filmed in the original language. So even if you're somebody watching subtitles, you are still hearing the language, the English language. So I think it can be difficult for comprehension, different accents, um, and I possibly grammar, possibly learning the grammar. Um, Maybe grammar and comprehension, because as much as a lot of people say they can't speak English very well, when they start to, they realize they have more vocabulary than what they realized, especially if they learned at school. They forget that they do have a lot of vocabulary. So I think the comprehension can be the difficult part sometimes.
Can be a challenge, yes. And how do you think they can improve their comprehension and like overcome their difficulties?
um I think, as well as the lessons, I think spending time watching TV or listening to radio or watching films with English subtitles is really helpful. And I think also interaction during the lessons. So as much as, like I said, students tell me they find it difficult to express themselves, I think it's important that they are also comfortable enough with the teacher to ask questions, listen to answers, um, say if they don't understand something. That's another actually an important point, that I think it can be for a language learner. Again, I'm a language learner myself. I know what it's like to pretend that you've understood somebody when you haven't. So I think it is important for a student to say, I don't understand, please repeat this. And I like to think a lot of my students do this. They tell me if they don't understand.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's very important. Yes.
Hmm.
Okay, Gemma, one last question. What advice would you give to all English learners? Your personal advice as a teacher.
I would advise them to allow themselves to enjoy the learning experience. So, not to see the learning as something they must do, something they have to do. See it as something they want to do. And this is it. I enjoy speaking different languages. I think it's something interesting. You don't only learn the language, you learn the way of life through this. So I think it's important to enjoy this. If there is something they're not enjoying, they should tell their teacher this, say, let's change this. I want to do this today. Because they are the student, they also have the control to say and the opportunities to say, I would like to do this. I'd like us to look at this. So also to open their mind to new ideas. So sometimes I say to my students, we'll do a role play, but you can choose today. You choose what you would like to do. So yeah, so to continue to enjoy, because the more you enjoy, the more you will learn. So, and also it becomes easier. So it always gets easier and easier the more you do.
Okay, yes, that's very, very true. Okay, Gemma, thanks very much for joining us today and for your time. It was really nice speaking to you. And
Thank you.
yeah, have a wonderful day.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Hey, bye bye.
Bye.